So, welcome to this latest edition of the British Business Podcast. My name's Stuart Morrison, and I'm delighted to tell you today I've got a great guest with me, who's Andrew Turner from Karrek, Chartered Financial Planning. So, a financial planner.
That's right, Stuart.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So, Andrew, where did it all start for you?
Oh, goodness. I joined one of the high street banks, Barclays Bank, actually, when I was 17 and did 4 or 5 years with them. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but one thing was for sure, I didn't want to sell insurance because my dad did it and my late brother did it, and they were both very, very good at it. Anyway, I thought, well, I ran out of ideas, I had a go, and to my horror, I found that just like my father and my brother, I took to it like a duck to water, and
You were good at it.
the rest is history, yeah.
Well done.
That's how it started.
Okay. And here you are in Cornwall,
Mm-hmm.
in this wonderful part of the world.
It is indeed.
Okay, but what about your customer base? Is your customer base predominantly Southwest, or where is it?
Well, we started off, obviously, I started my own practice about 20 odd years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That evolved into Karrek, which, by the way, means strong or stone in Cornish, K-A-R-E-K.
Thank you.
But we have evolved we have absorbed client banks all over the country. I do a lot of specialist work in the area of financial planning, and so we have clients literally. I've got quite a large client bank in London, in the south east and southwest of London. So I think we are. I think it's fair to say that we're pretty nationally orientated with their advice, but the core and the day-to-day, it seems to be, because we're based in Cornwall, but with Zoom and being able to travel,
Absolutely.
It's all over the country.
And I guess you've seen, through the time in your career as a financial planner, I guess you've seen some change in regulations and how the regulations have come into play.
Yes. Well, as we were saying off air, I was a salesman. When I first started in financial services, the goal was to sell insurance, and the companies that you work for, the managers, patted you on the head if you sold lots, and they frowned at you if you didn't sell very much, and you got paid commissions. And this salesman's life, or salesperson's life, I took to. But over the years, it became more and more technical. Knowledge is beneficial to the client. And then the advent of Retail Distribution Review, or RDR, made us all look at ourselves. We were on a journey anyway, but I think it was a seminal moment. And now it's very much focused on good client outcomes, advice. And alongside that journey, the academic requirements, as I've said to you before, I just kept going. I just couldn't stop myself, and that informed the approach to clients, good client outcomes, using technical knowledge, more advice based and less transactional. So that I can see like every financial advisor that's been in the industry for 20 odd years, we've all changed, and our function, although remains constant, and that is we want to help clients through financial advice and guidance, the way in which we do it, we look at ourselves and we look at client outcomes. In fact, a new piece of legislation coming out later this year called Consumer Duty is making us once again look at ourselves and make sure that clients are front and centre. And for a lot of us, we think, well, I do that anyway.
Yes,
all my clients are front and centre. Yeah. But it's an opportunity for you to make sure that is the case and make sure they're getting good value for money. And so we have an exciting opportunity to once again study what we're doing and improve ourselves again. Yeah,
absolutely.
Now that sounds. So some of my colleagues in financial services are now be thinking, "Oh, right, yeah, he's just saying that because they're called, you don't best behaviour." But it's my view that you embrace these changes. You just take on board what you can fight it if you like, but it's a waste of energy.
Embrace it.
Yeah, embrace it and try and integrate it into your. I think that's probably going to get you more of a successful outcome for your clients and your business if you do that.
Again, we were talking earlier about coming out of COVID. A lot of people over 55 thought about retirement. Yeah, there's a lot of talk at the moment about trying to get, the over 60s back to work as an example. In our business at Success CXP, we help businesses with recruitment and retention. We look at employee benefits, and we try and say at the moment, there are some serious challenges about availability. you know, particularly hospitality industry, the care sector. So there's a lot of talk at the moment about, can we get that group of over 60s back to work? So we were talking about, you know, is retirement healthy? Is it, you know, it's not suitable for everybody. You know, we were having that conversation. Did you notice more people retiring?
Definitely, yes.
You did?
I did. And of course, the first question clients normally ask me, my dear clients, they say, can I afford to retire? Mm-hmm. Do you think I've got enough money to retire? And of course, what a question that is. I mean, what does retirement mean to you? Yeah. How do you want to live in retirement? Are we just talking about financially, the implications? Because more often than not, the answer is yes, of course you can afford to retire. Yeah. But then when you really start speaking to clients, you ask them, what are you trying to achieve? Or you just don't want to go back to what you did before, or and do nothing? Yeah. What were the positives that you had from your occupation, your day-to-day experiences, your life? How much of a part did your work play? And it's very underestimated. And so a lot of clients have come to me, and I think phase retiring is a sensible option.
Well, we've got hybrid working now.
Yes. Hybrid working can lead into phase retiring. Yeah. But it's a good point you make about all the people that 55 plus are. And the 55 is, of course, an important number, because at the moment it's the age at which you can
first tap into your pension.
And you've got to be careful that as a financial planner, people don't go mad and spend too much in the early years, because later they could run out. And that's actually a phrase from that we're supposed to say to clients, but it's common sense, isn't it? I mean, just be careful. But these 55-year-olds that are supposedly on the golf course and not performing heart surgery, or that seems to be the worry, that we're losing so many skills. But it's not just that; it's the productivity that age group is through example. Younger people coming on, seeing their peers and their elders working efficiently with experience, that we're losing that. Yeah. And this is an important thing that society is facing. But the answer for my clients is normally not a financial one. It's normally sometimes it's, but be careful. But normally it's, yes, you can afford to retire, but should you retire? And that's a whole other conversation.
We're living longer as well, aren't we? Yeah. I think if we look at our previous generation, you know, maybe our parents, the expectation is you would retire at 65. And sadly, a lot of people didn't live much longer than 65.
They didn't, no.
You know, and that's terrible. But now people are tending to look at retirement from 55 onwards. But I think there's an expectation you could live for 30 years.
Do you know, it's so interesting, Stuart. I don't want to go on and on about it, but in my experience dealing with clients, it's a phenomenon at the moment. You have people of 55, their children can't afford to get on the property ladder, so bank of mum and dad kicks in.
Yes.
There's pressure from their children. There's pressure for them to live the lifestyle that they lived when they were working, if they're thinking about retiring.
Sure.
And then, would you believe it, they're looking after their parents, because their parents are still living, and so there's a time and cost restraint there. And we all know that's challenging. And as they themselves get older, they then face those same care costs. So, and I don't think anybody thinks, can I afford to retire? They think, well, can I go out for dinner? Can I keep my golf club subs? And can I pay the electricity bill? Oh, that's good, then I'll retire. But what about these other factors? And you see, it's a complicated subject. Can I afford to retire? Well, let's have a chat.
Well, you know, our generation at the moment, we have a number of challenges. You've just said it. A, we could well be looking after our parents. Secondly, we've just become the bank of mum and dad.
Yes.
Yeah. Thirdly, we're also fantastic. Childcare, child-minded.
Oh, that's as well. So, that's it. The next generation again. You're right. Yeah.
So at the moment, I could tell you that I'm extremely busy. So hence, what I did is I went to work, and I have to work, because there's a lot to maintain. But you can see there's a lot of pressure there, isn't there? You know, and again, in our business, you know, we call it, you know, wellness in the workplace, but mental wellness is huge. You know, really is huge. And you know, in this country, we've done a great job in actually raising awareness and saying, hey, it's okay not to be okay, but also at the same time, you need practical help. And there are so many challenges. We again, the energy situation with the energy crisis. We've got interest rates. We've got inflation.
Yes.
And then as you say, there's many other financial factors that impact on it. So therefore, I think I think you need a long-term plan.
You do.
And you've got to work long-term.
Yes.
And I think also you've got to accept now that you could well retire and live for 30 plus years.
Yes, indeed.
So you've got to think about that.
I think it's one of the a few times in life when it doesn't pay to be too optimistic about your financial situation. You've got to be realistic.
Yeah.
And put a few roadblocks in the way and think what happens if this goes wrong. I mean, in financial services, we're encouraged to use cash flow modelling, which I do, and my team use cash flow modelling. Yeah. But it goes one step beyond that. You need to talk to people and say, these are just not squiggles on these can happen, do happen, have happened.
Yeah.
2008, there's a bit of a blip in 2014. There's obviously COVID, and now there's the latest things that are going on around the world with the disturbances in Ukraine, and there'll be more. There'll always be something. What's next? Don't assume the straight lines on the graph. It's not healthy. It's very interesting, and when I talk to clients in this way, we have very interesting outcomes. Oh, I didn't think of that. Or yes, I see what you mean. Yeah. But what about my staff, the people that work for me? What does work mean to them? Yeah. I've got staff that are approaching or at 55. That you are your work, the experience of everyday work. I think my staff are more aware of that because of the experiences they see with the clients than some workers are. And also, that obviously there's the financial, you want the money to come in, but I don't think that's the primary driver for work when you get in your 50s. I don't.
Changes.
I think it's purpose.
Companionship. Friendship.
There's all of the above. So, should I retire? And then, as the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has said recently, that perhaps we should get off the golf course and get back to work. It's not quite as simple as that.
Yeah,
it's not quite as simple as that. I'm sure some can and some want to. But for a lot of them, they want to do something, but maybe they don't want to do what they used to do.
Sure.
And I think that tells me that they didn't quite think through the transition between working and retirement. Yeah. They ran away from what they were doing rather than towards what they want to do. Yeah. And they've created this void. Yeah. And all the money in the world, won't fill that sometimes.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Talking about the financial world, thinking about financial planning. So I had a let's call them a young person in their 20s, said to me, when should I start thinking about my pension? Yeah. Now, what would your advice be to a person in their 20s? Yeah, they've started their work, they're in their journey, they're in their career. Talk to me. When should we start?
Well, when I was in my 20s, I had a big brother who was a financial expert.
Yeah.
And
Chris Turner.
It was. Well, I was never Andrew Turner.
Oh.
I was always Chris Turner's brother. I'm very proud to be so as well. But Chris told me, and my family, the minute you start working, you should start putting some money aside.
Saving.
Now, pensions are a great place to put money aside because of the tax breaks.
Yep.
And if you're unsure of the tax breaks, just have a word with your financial advisor. But of course, workplace schemes are now mandatory, whereas an employer will put 3% of bound earnings in for you, and you will put 4% and get a bit of tax relief on, which is great.
Yep.
But I personally think it gives a false level of security to young people, because is that enough to meet their objectives? So you have to speak to each young person. When do you want to retire? What options do you want in? And so maybe you want to put a bit more into your pension and other opportunities at work or other places, or self-employed or whatever. Speak to your pension provider. Can you put a bit more in? And that's all very well saying that, but what about I got to feed my family, I need my mortgage, I've got to look after my protection if anything, if I'm ill. There are all these demands on my wages, and you're talking to me about saving for something which is 30, 40 years away, and there's the conflict. It's all about balance. You say, well, look, you put maybe a bit more than you're putting now if you want to retire earlier, or or you feel that you want a better than average lifestyle in retirement. And some young people think it's a waste of money because I might not see it. But of course, the money will always go to your relatives anyway and add to your wherewithal. But I get it. There are a lot of demands on young people's money. And a pension seems to be something that you can easily shelve. But no, I would say consider it. But in amongst all other financial planning that you would do.
Yeah. And of course, we need to start telling them now as well also. They've got to start preparing for the bank of mum and dad, looking after grandparents, i.e. us, properly, and also put a little bit of childcare to one side as well, because you'll probably be taking care of that as well during your retirement.
Well, that's right. And getting back to the pension, I mean, when we were in our 20s, I think most of us at some time had a defined benefit scheme. Yeah. Whereas these days, that's not the norm. Nope. I mean, if you work for the government or government agency, the civil servants, for example, there are still, and National Health Service, there are still occupational pension schemes with defined benefits guarantees. Yes. But for the vast majority of workers, that's not the case. And it is a concern. I sometimes wonder whether the generation that are starting now, when they get to our age, I think it just makes me think that we were very lucky that us baby boomers, we hold a lot of the wealth now, statistically in the UK, and our children expect that wealth to cascade down to them. Part of a function of a financial planner is to consider that. Yes. And to see how effective that will be, because of course estate planning, inheritance tax, etc., for people that have substantial wealth, and of course some people haven't got that, and there's this have and have not divide. And to be on the safe side, make sure that you financially plan properly from your 20s is absolutely imperative for all the reasons that we've said. So that's what I would say to somebody who's in their 20s, and for the reasons. Not exactly a scintillating conversation topic, but you'd be surprised how interested that generation is and how informed they are. They understand the concepts, a lot of them, especially with social media and access to information these days. It's just about getting to do something, and that's when again a financial advisor will come into it helps to facilitate the action.
Absolutely. And the advice would obviously always be get professional advice.
Oh yes.
Please don't Google it. Don't Google it, please. Yeah.
Or I know that some people take a lot of their information from influencers, as they call these days, which is great. I mean, I like to be influenced in the right way, but make sure that you're not inadvertently going the wrong path.
There's been actually quite a growth in this area on, let's call it the internet, whether it's YouTube or TikTok. There's a lot of influencers, and they are crossing almost that line, aren't they, of into, we call it advice, oblique guidance.
Yes, I think it's something regulator at the moment is looking at. You just need to be careful that before you commit your hard-earned money to anything, that it is the right course of action. And the only really safe way of doing that is to talk to a fully qualified professional.
Absolutely. So Andrew, your business, your philosophy, principle, your mantra. Tell me your position.
Mantra. My goodness me, my staff and colleagues will groan when they hear this. If you chase money. This is the mantra. If you chase money, it'll run away from you. If you chase success, money will chase you. I was very fortunate to study business management, financial planning, when I did my master's, and I looked at motivation in that work, intrinsic, extrinsic, intrinsic being for the joy of it, extrinsic being because you get paid to do something. And people think it's black and white. I love doing it, or I don't like doing it, I'm going to get paid for it, and it's my hobby and my work. Well, actually, if you think about it, if you have a joy of doing something and you become very good at it, if you're very good at it, then people are more likely to want to learn from you and use you. And then employers or clients will give you more money for doing that. And so the intrinsic motivation have an extrinsic outcome. So it all sounds very complicated, but it's quite straightforward. Enjoy what you do, and then you will be successful. Chase success, good outcomes, satisfaction, all the things that success should be, and that's one of my mantras, and I try and instill that into people. anybody that I can get to sit down long enough to listen.
Absolutely. We talk about people who go to work. Has it changed? I can remember it always used to be I go to work for the money. And it's not all about money, is it?
It's a starting place, isn't it? We do need
Of course,
to look after our families, and it would be
got to pay the bills.
Yeah, it would be ridiculous to say that that we don't. There isn't an element of extrinsic need. Of course. However, once you've accepted, it's like the regulation that we were talking about at some time a little while earlier. Once you've embraced the fact that you do need to do something, well, do the best you can do at it, and then success will follow. And you ask my observation about my clients and my staff. I think people sometimes have specific requirements there. Some of my staff would say, right, I need to work a lot harder because I want to earn more money, for example. Mm-hmm. Now, that's fine, but you just need to be careful that working harder is just doing a good job, more of it, and being successful so people see the value in it, rather than just doing more of something which there's not. And this is where chase success comes in, because that's not being successful, is it? That's chasing money. Yeah. And then, so for example, if you, in my industry, if you give advice that the client's paying a lot of money, can't see the value, well, that's not going to last very long. And so in the end, there's no value for anybody, the client or the person doing the business. That's a typical example. And so I think it's just an attitude of mind, which...
So would you say to people... get a new qualification, learn something new?
Well, yes, I would say that. It hasn't got to be new, however. Okay. If you enjoy what you're doing, have you ever thought whether you're doing it to the best of your ability, and what courses and university degrees or whatever are available to make you think more about what you're doing?
Yeah, become the best that you can.
An academic journey can be very refreshing. At any time of life. I didn't do my master's, for example, until I was in my 50s. Wow. And it did change the way I thought about things.
Yeah,
think about
perspective.
Things. I'm very proud of it. I think some of my colleagues go, well, here he goes again, talking about his master's. But it had such an impact on me. I can't say that it's very far from my thoughts. But,
sure. Where did you do your master's?
Manchester Metropolitan.
Okay.
And I was
distance or not?
What do they call it? Part-time, or okay. I had to travel up there 7 or 8 times in an academic year.
Okay.
So it felt as if I had contact, but a lot of the work was done at home remotely. Okay. My research was done away from the university. I was quite lucky because, being a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Insurance, or the PFS, I should say, Professional Finance Society, it was the qualification needed to enable you to do this master's. I don't know if it's available now, but there are certainly equivalents available out there. Yeah, so for anybody that but it doesn't. I'm talking about financial services, but anything. I mean, I have colleagues in social work that have benefit from their academic studies. It filters into their work.
Yes.
And I think it's optional with financial services. The qualification you do to get chartered, or a diploma and then chartered, it's very technical. They're very difficult, very technical. And then you have the opportunity to go on and explore in a more academic environment if you want, and that's.
And it's great to see that a university degree, a master's degree, is available to any age.
It is.
You don't have to be 18 or anymore.
No.
Yeah, you can go and get it, and there's a lot of mature students, and as you say, it can be very invigorating, and can really change the way you think about business, the way you think about work. Yeah, it's fantastic. And
it's in one of my my wife will say, "Where would you like to go for dinner?" And my first answer is, I haven't really thought about it. Where would you like to go? Yeah. And it's a recurring theme. Why do you always answer a question with a question? And it's not to be annoying. It's just how your mind changes, because you don't assume that where you're starting from is correct. You question even a silly thing like that. You don't mean to be annoying. I can see how it's annoying thinking about it, talking to you. I must stop doing it. But you just, it's the healthy questioning of an assumption. And that, I think that's the gift of study.
Absolutely. Okay. So tell me a little bit, what about outside of work then? What do you do with yourself outside of work?
Well, I'm a very proud father of two young men. My eldest son is currently the European kickboxing champion.
Wow.
And he's also runs martial arts classes, and it's just his first book released in that.
Wow.
My youngest son used to be a professional performer in London. He's now working within Karrek, and he's doing some amateur operatics and enjoying himself. And so I'm proud father of and happily married man to Kay, who's also a wonderful musician. So very settled and happy family life. My personal passion is aviation. I'm lucky enough to fly small airplanes.
Nice.
And I've done that for 16 or 17 years now. So that's pretty much me. And a bit of interest in some cars as well, but that's
Well, I saw you turn up today in a very lovely Jag. I did.
She's a very old Jag, but she's very lovely. Yes, thank you. One of my clankers.
Indeed. Andrew, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much. I think the area of financial planning is important, and without any doubt at all, what you need to do is make sure you get professional advice from qualified people, exactly like Andrew. So again, thank you today on the British Business Podcast, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.